Who's ready to finish installing a fuel system? We just installed the Radium dual hanger along with two Walbro 450s, and in order to do that, we're going to use the iWire kit for the two fuel pumps. We're just gonna go ahead and jump straight into it. If you guys find this video informative, make sure to leave a like and let me know what you guys wanna see next down below. Out of all the contents here, this is what we're gonna need for this section. You're gonna need the hardware that's included in this little baggie. You're gonna need this wire, this short braided wire. You'll need this fat coiled wire, which we're gonna uncoil and open it up. We'll need the circuit breaker, and then you'll need the plastic cover. So a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. 5 items, let's do this. Make sure to disconnect the negative terminal. Safety first, guys. First thing we need to do is remove the door still, which I think is what it's called. It just tabs in. If it's stuck, make sure to grab a plastic trim removal tool, but mine was pretty easy to get off. There is this thing we need to remove. This is the little clip, because we're trying to remove this panel here right next to the dead pedal and the clutch. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I think we can just pull this guy off. These are just tabbed in. What's holding it in is this green clip. You see this plastic bracket looking thing? Well, there is a 10mm bolt that is stuck in it, holding it in place. You're gonna need to remove it with a wrench or a socket and ratchet. And then once it's free, it's gonna help us get some more clearance and move all this crap out of the way. So I know things look like they got torn apart, but I'm gonna explain what happened. Not a lot's changed. There is gonna be this plastic cover here that snaps into place like so. And you're just gonna get a trim removal tool and you're just gonna pry at the edge and you're gonna remove it. This panel is gonna be like so, and there is a screw that goes right here. All I did was first remove the screw with a screwdriver. Next, you have these pigtail harnesses that connect in the following spots. The gray goes down here, this gray one goes in here, and this white one, we have a 50-50. I believe it goes in here on the left side, because that's my dim switch. There's gonna be tabs you need to press down. These get removed. Then you can put this guy to the side. I went ahead and jacked up the front of the car. Now the front's in the air because we're gonna be removing the wheel. You do not have to do this, but I'm gonna do it just to show you guys better angles in here and explain what's going on, and hopefully things make sense. Now check this out. This is the fender liner, this plastic thing that goes all the way around. All we need to do is remove these clips all along. There's one here, one there, one there. Just follow along the edge here and then look for these clips and then take this off. Fender liner is off. Now we just care about the portion from here. There is the hood, so just for reference, from here back. We don't care about the rest of the fender liner, so I just left that alone. This is the grommet I previously cut into. This holds all the wiring that goes into the car, and these thick black cables, these guys were for my gauges, so we're essentially gonna feed the iWire cable from this point on. So this is why I say it helps to have somebody standing here by the fender liner and have somebody inside the car feeding that wire through, and then it's just a matter of somebody grabbing this end, sorry, it's out of focus, grabbing this end and then feeding it up through here. And once we're here, we just care about routing that wire to the battery terminals here. So we're gonna go from the battery terminals behind the fender liner underneath, work our way here, and we're just gonna feed the cable right through that grommet I cut a hole through. We're gonna start with this fat power wire here. So you're probably wondering what direction, which wire goes to what side. This side, the black braided side that eventually terminates to red, which is the one I'm holding with my left hand, this side is going towards the battery. This side, I believe, is going towards the trunk. So I'm gonna start feeding this through, and then my girlfriend's gonna catch this wire on the other side. And just to remind you guys again, see how it's red and then it turns to black? This is the one we want. Now, we're gonna go underneath here. We're gonna follow the existing wires underneath the fender well. We're gonna shoot this thing up and out toward the fender, and we'll go to the battery. We're gonna shoot this guy here. And here it is. We still need to adjust the slack. I can pull more wire from the door, but I just left it like this for now. I'm gonna explain to you how to install the circuit breaker and everything real quick if you have an OEM tie down. Unfortunately, the way it's configured in the instructions are not gonna work for me because the battery tie down is just too wide here and it's gonna hit the post. The idea would be you install the nylon lock, match it to the height of the battery, then you would put this guy on. Then you would secure the top nut with this little edge here. This is like a locking nut. The one that's copper, this post goes to your positive terminal with the black wire here. The line we ran from the fender inside the car, I just gotta go get it. This guy would go to your silver post. And then you would throw on this guy. You would secure them, close this, done. However, because I have an aftermarket configuration, which means I have to do more modifications, unfortunately, I ended up shaving these posts down on the circuit breaker just so when I go ahead and mount it underneath the battery tie down, it's not going to go anywhere and it can fit fully flush, because it doesn't really matter where you mount this guy. The whole point of them putting it to the post here is just that you don't have wires and cables just moving around all over the place. That's the same principle of why we have a battery tie down, because without it, you could risk snapping one of these cables and it's gonna be a whole mess. So I'm about to time lapse through what I'm gonna do. I have the battery tie down loose, I have this terminal loose, I have everything ready to go. Then I'll show you guys just how my setup looks in case you guys are lost, and hopefully that will help you guys out in your own configuration. Here's my custom configuration of the circuit breaker. It's held down by the battery tie down, so that's good. We have the wire we routed through the fender underneath here, which we'll clean up in a second. And this wire is now on there, but I left it loose because I'm not too sure where I want to connect this to the positive terminal. Also, side note, do not connect this to positive yet. Just leave this for now. And then I think we can go on to the next step. We're underneath the car right here by the front driver's side. So just to show you guys, this braided line, this one right here I'm touching, this is the new line we routed to the battery. One zip tie here and one zip tie there, and it's running underneath here and going out that way. The next couple parts aren't that bad. I think they're less involved than before, and I promise from here it seems like it's gonna be downhill. So let's keep going. Now you're gonna take the other end of the cable or wire we just fished to the battery, and you're gonna take this end and we're gonna fish it through in between the door sill here. And then as we work our way closer to the B pillar, we're gonna have to remove the B pillar trim as well as the trim that is right by this portion, by those hard lines that are black. So I'm gonna go ahead and time lapse through this certain segment, and then I'll show you guys how everything was routed once all the trim pieces are removed and the wire is fed. We're chilling in the back seat. We have the other end of the cable. Now I can only surmise that this end is gonna go to our stock fuel pump controller, which sits in the right side of the trunk over there. So we're just gonna have this sitting for now. The instructions do say this wire needs to be ran parallel to the wires that go to the release for the trunk and gas cap. But in the picture, they show it being over here, so we'll just leave it here for now. Now let me show you what we did and how we tucked things away. We have the wire here. It's being ran underneath this portion right behind the B pillar right there. And then if you follow the door sill, you pry it up a little bit just to feed the wire through, and then it secures all the way down and there's no gaps. And then we can just probably zip tie that red wire somewhere and nothing's gonna show when we're all done with this. But that's pretty much the entire setup, and then you guys know that wire goes to the battery. Now we gotta get to the back of the trunk. Open your trunk up and remove the trunk liner, which is this mat here. Squeeze together, and this thing can go on top or put it somewhere. What is the point of us doing this? We need to gain access to the stock fuel pump controller, which sits back here. So we need to remove the rear passenger side trunk liner. There are a couple pop clips, one up here, one there, I believe one more up here, which I'm missing. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll go to the next step. Now that everything's removed, we ended up feeding this power wire through this corner here, and let me go to the back seat to show you exactly where I fed it through and how you can check. So we follow this line, we go underneath the seatbelt, and you snake it through right here on the left side of this black post. Then you can just unlock the seat, and we can see the red wire poking out from underneath this black piece. Now we can actually get to the wiring. First thing we'll do is reach around this. This is the fuel pump controller. There is a tab, you'll press down, this will come out. We'll grab this guy and we'll plug it into the new location, which is here. This is gonna be plugging into the new iWire harness. That's in, yep. Now, this connector, this is the one that's gonna be replacing that. This one goes in here. And to make things crystal clear, this is the new iWire harness that's getting plugged into the OEM stock or stock fuel pump controller. And then the original connector, which is running through here, this guy's connected to one of the female ends. So male original connector going to the female, and the new one from iWire, which is labeled right here with this white tape. And then this is the rest of the harness we still need to figure out. The next couple steps are gonna be applicable for the people that are running double pumps like myself. So there is a connection off of the harness that we just plugged into for the fuel pump controller. There's a black piece you need to remove, just pry it off like that. Then we're gonna have to install, we're gonna grab this other module that we got from the bench, there's a bright yellow wire with this orange piece down here. You're gonna have to install that inside here, and I believe the orientation is gonna be like so. Yeah, it looks like it. Looks all the way up. We got that in, and it fits really well, so that was not that bad. And now we got to reinstall that black piece we just removed. We got the we got the yellow wire in. Now let's go to the next step. Here in my right hand, we have the wiring for the main pump, and then here is the secondary pump wiring. So all we need to do is connect orange to orange. However, I was confused. We need to disconnect this piece, and then you're gonna have to insert this blade connector into this white piece, which is gonna orient just like this, straight up, push it all the way in. And then I heard a little click, so that's good. Now we can take the orange piece or orange wire from the main harness and connect it to the secondary harness. Done. Now you're gonna grab this fuse thing, this relay, I guess. Then you're gonna lift these tabs up, and this is gonna expose the fuse. I believe there are two 30 amp fuses. So this is one 30 amp fuse, and we need to add another one for the other pump. So there is the correct amount of current flowing through. And there's one included in the kit. So there's another pink one, just insert it. All right, they're both in. Now we just gotta reapply the cover, and it should click, and like snaps in, and we're good. Next is going to be installing the ring terminal for ground coming from the new iWire harness that goes to the OEM fuel pump controller. So for me, you can do this anywhere, but I'm going to use the stud and bolt or nut location here for the rear coilover on the passenger side. I'm just going to remove the nut. Now the instructions say to sand the area away just to make sure you have the best ground, because unpainted material makes for the best ground. So I don't have sandpaper with me, but what I'm gonna do is just use a flathead, and the paint's thin here anyway, and it's just gonna pretty much chip away at this. We'll take that ring terminal, put it on. I'm gonna lightly zap it. On the instructions, it's gonna tell you to install this module. Don't. What we're gonna do first is install the connections to it, and then we're gonna go ahead and mount it, just because it's gonna make your life a whole lot easier. So you're gonna grab the wires that are coming from the main iWire harness to the fuel pump controller, and then we're just going to plug it in. So this big fat connector with the white and yellow wires coming off it for my pumps, this goes in. If you're having a hard time connecting this guy, what you wanna do is grab something like silicone lubricant around those rubber parts and then push it in. That one just went right in. So now that we have these mounted, we'll go ahead and install this guy like so. And then I think that's gonna wrap up this portion of the module. And the last thing that they don't tell you is at the very bottom of the module, there is a stud with a nut, 13mm nut. You're gonna have to remove this guy before you wanna install it like I just did. And you're gonna grab the red power wire we fed all the way from the battery all the way back here. You're gonna install this rubber boot on it. And then once the boot's on, you'll slide this guy on, you'll put the nut on, call it a day, and then put this thing back in. I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera. I'm just gonna explain that to you guys. I'm so fed up with this part. Maybe we'll do a time lapse and we'll go from there. And here's a look at the module, all said and done. Everything is hooked up. Now we'll move to the back seat. This harness has a blue and white cable. You want to fish this in the same direction as this red wire that was going this way. Now we're going to get into the wiring of the actual fuel hanger for the Radium kit. So I already have this cover off. You're going to want to cut a nice slit here, about a ½ inch, and then you're going to want to remove this with the 4 Phillips screws around the cover. Mine's already off because we just installed in the previous video the actual Radium fuel hanger, so we already have ours accessible. You're going to grab this black connector with these colored ring terminals. This thing is going to plug into this guy here, which should go like so. Push it in. And now we'll just hook up these terminals. We'll grab the single ground wire from the iWire kit. We'll cut the zip tie, and then let's see, I believe this end, the smaller ring terminal, goes to the thing that's labeled pump 2 negative terminal, which for us will be right here. Pump 2 negative, which is on the left hand side. We're gonna grab some nuts from the iWire kit. Now we connected the stock fuel tank connector into the jumper for fuel level and temperature, which are all these. I'm guessing this is fuel level and temperature, so we'll have to connect them. And another thing to note, none of these wires have polarity, meaning it does not matter where you connect them to, positive or negative. So black's going to fuel level, and then the next one, which will be blue, is going to go for fuel level. Yellow with the green stripe, which is this guy, this will be our fuel temperature. So let's go alpha for this. And then there's still play, I haven't tightened them all the way down. So now white with a black stripe in it, this will be fuel temperature as well, so let's go Bravo. Now you'll grab this portion of the iWire kit, which is a pigtail connector with white and blue wiring and ring terminals at the other end. We'll feed it through that cut we made right here. Now we'll grab this end, and this essentially connects from our main harness that we connected to the stock fuel pump controller. Boom, it's connected. That's all good. Now for the white and blue wires here, the white is positive and the blue is negative. Maybe I misspoke. So we're gonna connect these to pump 1 on the actual hanger here. So we're gonna feed this underneath the connection, and let's see. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go around. I feel like going around. I'll take the long way. And this guy will go here. The polarity for these do matter. So blue goes to negative, white goes to positive, and you want these to match up with the studs on the hanger. Blue is negative and the white is positive. Something also worth mentioning here is that the wires to the actual pumps are much thicker gauge wiring than the ones for temperature and the level. Again, just hand tight in case we want to make any micro adjustments. Last thing we got to do is grab our pump 2 cable from that pump 2 module in the back of the trunk. This is a black cable that eventually goes to gray. We'll feed it through the top of our cover, pull the wires through. Now we will connect this to our pump 2 positive side. The last thing to do is hook up the ground from our cable we ran, just the sole cable that's going from the pump 2 negative. We want an unpainted metal surface. So what I'm going to utilize here is this bolt that I just removed. It's a 12 millimeter. Now torque it down or just send it. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up here a little bit before we keep going. I know it looks like a mess, and I promise I'm not gonna put anything away. I will show you guys how I routed everything and where everything is, but I just need to clean up here for my own sake. Here's the final product. I promised you guys there are all the fittings connected. We have all the ring terminals connected with the applied hardware from Radium, which are these little black end caps. We still need to figure out what we're gonna do with the pressure switch. This has to get routed the same way this red cord or cable is going all the way out to the battery, unfortunately. We'll get into that in a second. Everything here is pretty much done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just tighten everything down here because I just did it hand tight, see how it's still moving. And I'm gonna probably do some zip tie maintenance to the back seat. I'll show you guys at the very end of that. And then the trunk still needs to get tightened up just a little bit. So that's gonna be done off camera. We're very, very close. Let's keep going. So we zip tied the black main harness from the stock fuel pump controller down here with the red and with this ground cable entering here. Zip tied it here. We also zip tied it there. We zip tied it to this point where the seat belt, or sorry, the seat sits. We did another one here. I did one here, one there, and we just rearranged the order of, you know, what cables are going to be sitting on top of each other. Last thing we need to do is the fuel pressure switch, but to be honest, guys, I'm spent. It's Sunday, I got homework to do, and it's almost dinner time. I think today's gonna be a good stopping point for me, unfortunately. We still have some tidying up to do in the trunk, which I promise I will show you guys maybe a time lapse of, then we'll go over it. And then we're still about a week and a half away from the dyno, so we have time in case anything happens, but I'm feeling pretty confident in the work. Last piece of wiring we need to take care of is to route this thing all the way along the red, just like we routed it by the B pillar, through the driver's side door sill, and we need to shoot this up to the battery area because this is going to be the connector for the hop switch. The hop switch is essentially a thing that once it sees the amount of pressure based off the vacuum reference, it's going to close the switch, complete the circuit, and kick on the second pump. I'm just gonna go ahead and route this same way as you guys have seen throughout the video. And once we get to the part where I need to shoot this wire through the fender, I'm gonna start depinning it, and then we'll catch back up. We're here at the driver's seat and we are ready to fish this through the fender, through that little grommet. However, you're not gonna be able to do this with this pigtail connector. You're gonna have to depin this. I don't know how to depin, so I'll catch you guys at the other end when I do this off camera. I'm just playing. We'll depin this together though. I believe you start by removing the actual clip. And now I can see the pins. I already went ahead and depinned one of the connectors. It's actually not that bad. It's not any crazy science. I don't need to depin the second one, but I'm going to just to show you guys. You're gonna grab your pick, a very fine pick for this. You're going to go on the top of the slot here. You'll have to just feel it. You should pry up, and you'll hear it just like that. So kind of hold it down like this, and then I should be able to pull out like this. Done. And that's how you depin a connector. I know it's gonna be a lot easier than you guys trying it. It took me maybe about 5 minutes to get it. And also remember the order in which you pull it out. So this one was number 3, so I'm gonna put this guy back in 3. I just wanted to show you guys how that looked. Now I'm going to put this aside and try to feed the depinning wire that I just did off camera to my girlfriend through the fender, and then we'll meet back up at the engine bay. My girlfriend just got the other end that we disconnected. Let me show you guys the impossible. You're gonna have to go underneath here. I ended up removing the seat a little bit, by the way. I'm sorry if the angles or the lighting's not the best. This is what I did. We are essentially squeezing our hand through here, and you're just gonna have to go in there, try to get somebody to help you from the other side, and just tell them to put their finger through, because once you touch their finger, you'll at least have a reference of where it is. But while you're trying to get your hand in here, make sure to pinch the wire and drag it up. That's what I was able to do. I pushed it just further enough in that hole, and she was able to grab it for me, which is now why she has it. All we have left to do is route it to, through the fender, kind of by where the battery was, and we're almost done. We got everything we need to finally finish up the rest of the install. I was waiting on a couple of fittings like this one, which we'll get into in a second. So this is your pressure switch. This is essentially going to tell the car when to turn on pump number 2. Once it sees a certain demand of PSI, somewhere between 3 and 15, which you can set it to, which we'll also get into in a second. So in order to install this, which we're going to route using our vacuum line here, this is 1/4 inch vacuum line. This is going to be a 1/8 MPT female end that's going to screw into our hop switch here, or pressure switch. And then this is going to be 1/4 or 1/4 inch hose barb that we're going to plumb our new vacuum line, which I bought on Amazon, from here all the way to our intake manifold, because this thing runs off intake manifold. Do not plumb this or tie this in to fuel pressure. So in order to install this, what we're gonna do first is grab some of our Permatex thread paste, thread sealant. You guys know what I'm talking about. And this is recommended in the instructions. We're going to give it a nice dab or a nice coating all around the threads, because we want this thing to seal up properly, as I can't speak English today. That should be enough. Now we're gonna grab our fitting. We just gotta screw this thing on. I'll probably grab a wrench just to make sure it's tight. Oh, nice, first guess, let's go. This is a 5/8 wrench, and I'm just going to tighten it down to the point where it's getting really tough, because I don't wanna break threads. That's good enough for me. So let me try to explain this as best as possible. I was telling you guys, this thing is responsible for turning on pump number 2 based on a certain PSI that it reads. So what we're going to do is plumb vacuum into it, apply a vacuum source, something that gives it pressure, gives it air, and then we're going to put our leads here from our multimeter. It doesn't matter which goes to where, either black on this side, black on that side, doesn't matter. But you're going to essentially put your leads there. You're going to apply a vacuum pressure or a source, and you're going to watch that gauge. You don't want to go over the setting point, which is 15 as a max. And then once it beeps, once we set our multimeter for continuity, and once it beeps and you apply that pressure with the lead still there, that means at that PSI, whatever it's reading on the gauge for the pump, that is when the switch is going to close, it's going to complete the circuit, and pump number 2 will kick on. Now I'll tell you guys right now, I currently have it at around, I think 11 PSI, because I've already tested this. I have this Mighty Vac out because I'm gonna tell you guys, I bought this thing trying to do it. However, I bought the wrong model. So if you are online looking for a Mighty Vac, which the instructions do say to use one of these guys, this thing is an MV8000. This thing is not gonna be any use to you because it's not going to actually apply vacuum. It's actually going to suck air in, and that's not what you want, because I've been trying to fiddle with this for the last hour, honestly, and I was not getting a reading, and that's why. And you're probably like, okay, well, what are we gonna be using if we're not using a Mighty Vac? Well, we're gonna be using a simple bicycle pump I picked up at Walmart for about 15 to 20 bucks. This thing is perfect. It reads 0 to 100 PSI. Just be super careful not to exceed the 15 PSI for this. So like I said, I already have tested this. This thing turns on and completes the circuit at around, I think 11. So what I'm going to do to increase the PSI, I'm gonna put my 3mm Allen key in here, in between the 2 prongs here. I'm gonna twist, give it a little bit more twist. Hopefully that's enough. I think maybe that's too much. Then I'm gonna apply my vacuum tubing onto the fitting. I'm gonna have my lovely assistant come up here And we're going to first connect our multimeter leads. So the black one is gonna go to COM. Our red lead is going to go to positive voltage with resistance. Then you're going to go to continuity. My girlfriend's going to put the leads in, and then I'm going to apply pressure right now. You ready? We are at 10. That looks good. 15.
Oh yeah, that's good. Right
All right, 15. So right at 15. The key here is you guys hear the beeps. You also hear, or sorry, you don't hear this. You see the multimeter changing the resistance here, going from an overload condition, which means that the circuit's open. And once you see the resistance changing here, that means your circuit is now closing, and then it has some internal resistance. And yeah, I don't know the rest of this, but that means that the thing's working. Now that we have the pressure switch configured and we have it all set up, we can now move to the car and install this thing. We'll take our vacuum line, and besides this stuff that we have in the engine bay, which we'll set up here, the last thing we got to do is install or add a fuse here, which is going to be this guy. This end will go to this, and this will connect to the fuse box that's in the driver's side panel. And then this end of the wire will go back, and we'll have to fish all the wiring again by the pillars and through the back seat, and this will connect there. So we're very, very close. Let's wrap this up. I'm getting ready to mock up the pressure switch on where I want it to live. It's gonna be hard for you guys to see even what I'm doing from this angle, or any angle for that matter. So I'm just gonna set everything up. Just know, at least in my case, you have a couple options in terms of vacuum sources for your intake manifold. You can utilize this front port, which I'm going to be utilizing. This is where your evap solenoids used to connect to. I have it capped off right now, but I'm going to plumb a 1/4 inch hose from this end of the barb to this guy underneath the intake manifold and up. I believe you can probably do some type of T configuration with your bypass valve or blow-off valve, as well as the check valve underneath the intake manifold. I'm not sure if you can only utilize the intake manifold port right here on cylinder number 4, but that is usually blocked off due to the fact that you are now rerouting your fuel pressure regulator manifold reference to the bypass valve, blow-off valve area anyway. So I'm not too sure about that. I'm just going to mount everything up, and then I'll show you guys where I routed everything and see if hopefully this does the job. Check it out, right there on the return line going back to my flex fuel kit is where I routed my hop switch, and then I connected the vacuum source here. I zip tied things, sorry it's out of focus. So like I was saying, I zip tied it to the fitting with a vacuum line. I go underneath the intake manifold and I routed it right to the little fitting here. That is where my evap solenoid used to go. Zip tied it there as well. And I just did a little bit of housekeeping, zip tied some more things. I ended up zip tying this guy down to the line, which I don't think is gonna be a big deal, but I'll keep you guys updated, of course, as always. And then I just did some zip tying here. Now, as far as the ground for the actual connector that goes to the hop switch, you can utilize this bolt here. I mean, any real bolt that has a good grounding to it. I actually utilize this bolt back here behind the fuse box, so it looks kind of clean and tucked away, but you can really install that portion anywhere. Now, the last thing we have to do is connect this guy to the positive terminal, as well as our add a fuse. So our add a fuse is going to be over here. Where is it? It's gonna be this guy, like I already mentioned. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll just show you guys where everything's routed. And then we're gonna go ahead and turn key, and hopefully everything works. Hopefully nothing happens. I didn't wanna leave you guys hanging. So this is the wire I was just talking about. So this end is the male end, and then this end is gonna be the female end. Now this is the wire that we originally shot, I don't even know how long ago, from the trunk. We're just gonna connect this guy, click, boom. Now, the boring part, which you guys are not gonna see, I will just show you guys a very brief final product of this. We're just gonna route this line all the way, just like we did with this red line, just follow it along. But this guy is not gonna go through the fender well or nothing like that. We're gonna stop right at the fuse box, right by the driver's side door, so that's gonna be good news. I'm gonna knock this out, and then I'll catch you guys when we go ahead and start the car. We finally made it. The cable is now routed up to the fuse box. Now we're going to plug this side in. It's gonna be kind of difficult, but we'll get it. There we go. Once you hear kind of a snapping or clicking sound, that means this is all the way in. So this is gonna be our add a fuse. So what we wanna do is we want to connect this to anywhere where we turn key and get power. I'm going to connect this to the wiper device. So this is going to be right here, 20 amp. So we're gonna go from the 20 amp, which is the only yellow one in here. We're going to go over 1, 2, 3, and we're gonna go up, and it's gonna be a 7.5 amp fuse. We're gonna pull that out, add it to here, and then now plug in the add a fuse. And you can do this for any one of them. It doesn't necessarily have to be the wiper device. I'm just doing it because my cigar one's already kind of out. Make sure it's not also one that works when the power is fully on. I am gonna clean all this up. I'm just gonna leave it for now just because we're just doing an initial test, making sure everything works and we have no leaks or anything like that. The last thing I'm doing right now is just going to hook up this short little wire that we have to this copper post onto our positive terminal. So until I figure out how I'm gonna route that or maybe get something else in the future, it's just gonna be like that. So it is what it is. I'm gonna tighten that down. Last thing to do, and hopefully the car doesn't blow up, is connect our ground. Let's go prime the car, see if we hear any fuel pumps turn on. Hopefully we do, and we can get the heck out of here. Why am I nervous? For like the millionth time, I've done stuff to this car. Key on. I heard it prime. It's a loud ass pump. And that is going to wrap up our install of the entire Radium setup, the two Walbro 450s, the iWire kit, which was honestly a disaster and a half of trying to read and comprehend the PDF instructions, but it's okay. We got through it. There are no leaks. That loud hissing sound you guys heard, I forgot to reconnect the brake booster line that runs from the brake booster to the intake manifold, that little check valve, but we plumbed it back in, noise was gone, everything's running great. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you learned something new, or if this video helped you out in whatever color or any way, make sure to leave a like, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the next video when we go to the dyno. Super happy and excited we got this done. That's another hard install-ish that we got under our belt, which means we'll be even prepared or more prepared to tackle more installs in the future. Until next time, I'll see you guys on the next one.